Hey everybody, it is Hit Rewind The Mixtape, where we are now at year 1986, and we're going to be changing things up a little bit, aren't we, John?
A little bit, yeah.
We're going to do the whole shebang at once. Well, last year is the first year that we had a two-parter, because there's too much to choose from. And 1986, you know what, we're just going to do a top 10 instead of two top 5s. That way it's easy just to post and get that going.
Yeah, it's much simpler that way if we just do it all at once.
Yeah, and so we might as well start. What is number one for you?
Number one for me is the Pet Shop Boys, Please.
Oh, you know what I just realized? You know what we can do?
What?
I just realized that we don't have to do it this way. How we had it separated where we did the first 6 months and the second 6 months. Now we just do the top 10 for the whole year.
Yeah, which will save me a little bit of time, because a lot of it's like all my favorite things seem to be at the back half of years now.
Well, yeah, because that's when all the big albums sell for Christmas. But there's some good summer stuff in there too. But I found myself kind of struggling to, this year didn't have that many good, or in the first half and the second half or whatever. And I just it'd be so much better if we just combined it all into one. So here we go.
But yeah, so Pet Shop Boys and their debut, Please, was my first one. And damn, is this such a really good album, isn't it?
I really enjoyed it, yes. I didn't realize how dancey it was. I've never listened to Pet Shop Boys. I only know West End Girls, basically. And I had a lot of fun listening to this.
Yeah, which is kind of funny, is I do think, Divided by Zero is a little bit, it's kind of a weak-ass track for an opener. But then it's you get West End Girls and Opportunities. And it's just those two songs, coming after that, it totally forgives that first track, and it's such a great song, like Suburbia, because you have this song that's basically about the Brixton riot, or it's kind of based around the Brixton riots of 81 and 85.
Oh, what is this? I don't know about these.
Oh yeah, it's basically about how these the socioeconomic problems and systemic racism set off these riots.
Huh.
In which, it's I was reading a little bit about it, but that was, I'll be honest, a little while ago before when we were going to do this as a split. So my memory is a little hazy of exactly what happened, but the song itself is kind of like those sorts of things, but also mixed with the boredom of suburbia.
Uh-huh.
What these things could do to the disaffected youth of Britain. Just kind of I'm bored. There's we're in these safe suburbs, but you know what? Let's go destroy something. Kind of in the kind of punk anarchist sort of thing.
Well, there's a movie called, oh god, what is it called? It has Matt Dillon. It's his debut, where it's a bunch of suburban kids with nothing to do. They're so bored out of their mind, and they just
it's Suburbia, which is the Penelope Spheres film, right?
No, it's from '79. Shit.
Oh.
I'll remember it, but it's one of these things where one little incident, because they were fucking around, caused them to go into chaos, and this whole suburbia is just in lockdown from riots. But yeah, these kids that have nothing to do, they're bored, they just get into trouble to keep things going.
Yeah, and that's it's a continuing through line of 80s music where there's a lot of dancey, upbeat stuff, but it's usually about something really dark and surprisingly dark in some cases.
Yeah.
So what's yours? Your first one?
My very first one is Control by Janet Jackson. And this is not her first album, but most people think it is, because this is the one that just completely broke huge. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that she teamed up with legendary music writers and producers Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, also the name of my testicles. I did. I named my balls Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis. It's just so fun to say.
I genuinely had forgotten how awesome this album is. And that was the thing, I was starting to listen to it, and it was just opening with Control, I got this whole Prince vibe, and I'm did Prince produce this? And so I'm sitting there looking at stuff, and yeah, as you said, Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis. who were former members of the time. So
Yeah.
You definitely had, like, my brain immediately heard where that influence came from. And,
and for some reason I thought that Control was the only hit off this. I thought the rest of them came off of her '89 album, and I was wrong. And I just can't believe that you have just a hammering away at Control, Nasty, What Have You Done For Me Lately, which I think is my favorite track of hers. The Pleasure Principle, and When I Think of You. Those are all top 10, I think, hits. That's amazing for someone who's just starting out.
Yeah, what's funny is, like, this is an album that is basically all killer, no filler. And even then, it's like, what, You Can Be Mine is maybe, if you really had to pick a weak song off the album.
Yeah, but a weak song off this album is a good song off any other album.
Exactly. If you've never heard this album, this, and I guess, Rhythm Nation are basically like the peak Janet Jackson stuff.
Yeah, I mean, because she still did well during the 90s. She would have 2 or 3 hits, but we're talking like most of the album got released as singles. Yeah, I mean, she's responsible, I think, for New Jack Swing. I know some people hate it, but I fucking adore New Jack Swing. But she, in '89, she would... But her whole sound would guide R&B for years, more than even Michael Jackson.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Jackson definitely sold more records, but this, in a lot of ways, I think this is a little bit more. No, I don't want to say influential, but maybe special. I think.
Yeah,
might be the best way to phrase it.
It's just a new sound that changed everything for the last half of the '80s.
Yeah, 2 thumbs up, 2 digits up. I mean.
We can't get sued. Let's think of something else. 2 needle drops.
There you go.
All right, what is yours?
Yeah, my next one is Public Image Limited's album.
Which I forgot.
Now,
you wrote Pill, and I was like, who the fuck is Pill? And you remembered.
Oh, yeah. But yeah, it's, Pill is the Johnny Rotten of the Sex Pistols band that he... Basically, Sex Pistols broke up after, like the one album and a tour, and that's effectively it. As influential and as much as we know the Sex Pistols, they weren't around for very long.
No, you know what? I don't like the Sex Pistols. They all seem like a gimmick. A band that really can't play. Fuck that. I'll take the Ramones. I'll take the Ramones.
Well, that was the thing. It was a band that knew how to play, that chose to, like that old thing that you'll hear, like music and art teachers and writers, all these teachers will say is, you got to know the rules before you can break them. That's kind of the thing. Was the idea was they weren't the Germs, they weren't some of these after Sex Pistols, after Ramones, bands, that basically went, oh, they can't play. Well, I can't play either.
Yeah.
I'm gonna play a guitar with a broken bottle. That kind of shit. I think that was a Germs thing. I might be wrong, but might be getting myself confused with someone else. But to be said, it's instead of just being like punk was basically anti-music. That was the idea, at least from the Sex Pistols.
Right, I was saying, the Ramones, it was about the excess of prog rock that they were sick of. The songs would go on for 8 minutes and just wander around, and they wanted short and quick and fast. Like, it's quick and fast, the same thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that was the idea, was John Lydon basically kind of saw this, what the record labels, because they did sell well enough considering all the controversy around them, that it was kind of like, well, they want us to basically be the one-trick pony and be our dancing monkey, and he kind of went, no, I know how to play, and you want me to sit there and do like a terrible 3-chord stuff.
Yeah.
Hence Pill kind of happened, and Pill does really show that there's a lot of talent that Lydon had. Well,
also the fact that you add Steve Vai to the mix, that changes things.
Well, yes, that it does help that this album does have Steve Vai, and you got Cream co-founder and drummer Ginger Baker. It's like Ryuichi Sakamoto's on this. It's a hell of an album. Now, what's funny about this is it's also depends on what format you got this on. It was called album or cassette, compact disc. And it is, instead of like, and it's Sliding is always kind of considered this a solo album, even though he's released it under the Pill name. But it's basically him working with, again, instead of a band, it's different musicians.
It's basically session artist, yeah.
Yeah, and oh man, like especially the guitar work on this is great. It is Steve Vai. We will have a Steve Vai album in the '90s.
Is it Surfing with the Alien? Am I guessing?
No, that's Satriani.
Oh shit! Never mind. Sorry.
Not a bad pull, but no.
I don't know my guitar. My mother just asked me. She goes, "Who is Yngwie? What's the band Yngwie Malmsteen?" And I was like,
Yngwie Malmsteen, yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, you don't remember getting me that album in '93 and me not liking it because it had no lyrics whatsoever?" She's like, "Nope, I had no clue."
But this is the album that had Rise,
which is the only song that I knew.
And it's a song about basically Nelson Mandela and South African apartheid, and it's their best well-known song, highest charting song, and it's like really it doesn't go, in my mind, it really doesn't go any further than this album. They continued on for a good while, but this is about, if you're ever going to listen to Public Image Limited, this is the album. This is the one to listen to.
Yeah, whenever I think of this band, I always think of Big Audio Dynamite as well, which came from a very well-known punk band breaking up. But Big Audio Dynamite, I think, is much more well favored because they had a pop sound.
Yeah, I don't think I'm trying to think if I've heard that one or not. But
Big Audio Dynamite, you know it. They have 2 or 3 really big songs.
I probably have. It's just
okay.
The name is familiar enough that I'm like, I think I know that, but I would have to hear a song,
Rush for the change in atmosphere. You know that one? That is them, right? Not Clash. Shit, the end of the Clash mixes very well into Big Audio Dynamite. Should I stay or should I go now? I think it's a Clash song. If I keep getting confused, I'm going to shut up now.
Yeah. Okay. Well, what's your next one, and we'll stick a pin in that one.
Okay. All right, we're supposed to go whenever we go off in tangents. We should have a whistle. Ooh, offsides.
Yeah, I don't.
No.
Oh, wait, here we go. Hold on. Let me. Look, shiny.
Ooh. That's a distraction. That's gonna make it worse. My second one is Queen, A Kind of Magic. The only album on this I probably listened to more than 100 times. It is one of my I think it is my favorite Queen album. I know it's not the one that's really big, but it is the one that, for me, I think saved their career. It wasn't as big then as it is now because of all the tracks that came from movies. And that's a big reason why I like this album, because I love the movies that these songs appeared in.
Well, I will say this. I think it's a weak album.
Blasphemy!
But hear me out. Even nothing on this album feels phoned in. I mean, heck, I guess apparently, like, Give Me the Prize, which I guess everybody hated, doesn't really seem like anyone's just, going through the motions. Everyone's trying, Okay, maybe Don't Lose... Don't Lose Your Head. Maybe that's a little forced, but, overall, I think it's fine, but they also, like, Give Me the Prize, these samples they use in it are really clumsily done. But that's also, I come from a time when I listened to a lot of music that drops samples on everything, and 9 times out of 10, they're, it's well placed.
I'm making the Sam the Eagle face from the Muppets. That's the face I'm making right now. But I mean, it starts off... go ahead.
We all have to admit, Princes of the Universe is a terrible song. We love it,
but it's terrible. Yeah, it is.
Cheesy.
All these songs are cheesy, but I think there's just so much fun to be had by listening to this all the time in high school. Being a huge fan of Iron Eagle. Fuck Top Gun. I hate Top Gun so much. And being a huge fan of Highlander. Not so much the sequels, because I don't know what the fuck happened. But just a lot of that nostalgia. It's all connected to films. It's the way I like the Flash Gordon soundtrack. I know the movie's not that great. I know that the soundtrack's not that great. But together, they're wonderful. I don't know how that works. I think it's like Xanadu. I don't know what the movie Xanadu is trying to say. The music's fun. But, yeah, most of these are from movies. So One Vision is from Iron Eagle. I still don't understand why he asked for fried chicken at the end. That seems so strange.
Needed just a closing line?
Yeah, maybe something silly. Kind of Magic, One Year of Love, Who Wants to Live Forever, Give Me the Prize, and Prince of the Universe, and Don't Lose Your Head are all from Highlander. The only ones that are not in movies that, as far as I know, is Pain Is So Close to Pleasure, Friends Will Be Friends. And I think those are all really solid tracks. Friends Will Be Friends is actually awfully adorable. It's a very sweet song.
Yeah, like I said, I don't hate the album, and like I said, I just think you kind of go, especially based on a few of the other albums we've listened to, you kind of go, great album, this one, next.
Yes, well, I mean, we talked about the last one, I think was kind of their comeback, because there was a couple years where it was a little soft. They weren't hitting as well. If I remember correctly, this is when he was kind of doing drugs and got distracted and stuff. But this is, the last 3 albums, I think, are all very strong.
Let's see. Yeah, as I said, it's cheesy more than I think it needs to be. I guess would be the best way to phrase that.
Moving on. Next album, before we dig ourselves in deeper, buddy.
My next one is Husker Du's Candy Apple Grey.
Shit, which was on my list. Damn you.
Yeah, I laid claim to this first, so
you bastard.
Thankfully. Yeah, because we had split these up by the time period, so I didn't actually have anything else for the early part of the year.
It's okay. I had a lot of stuff to dig through, so we're good.
Yeah, but yeah, Husker Du is this hardcore indie punk band, and I will say this: you really should hear their stuff. If you've never heard that, you need to hear not just Candy Apple Grey, but check out 84's Zen Arcade.
Yeah, it's I didn't know who they were. All I remember was the joke in Joe Dirt, Husker Du, Husker Don't. And I thought they were some weirdo German, like, it just sounded like a Kraftwerk kind of band. So I just never really bothered to listen to them. And then I popped in and I go, this is Husker Du? It almost
that was my...
Go ahead.
That was my actual original thought, too, was I thinking that, it's going to be some krautrock or something. And... it's like there was that Left of the Dial compilation.
Yeah,
I believe was where I first heard them and went, "Oh, I must check them out."
Yeah. It's I held on too long, but now I've been listening to them quite a bit. I think I even posted. I was like, "How dare you keep Husker Du away from me, everybody?"
and that's the thing. It's like this is also a great example because this was their major label debut. This is a great example of how just because you're on a major label doesn't mean that you're going to, quote-unquote, sell out.
Right.
And turn into a pop band or something.
Oh, God, I don't understand it. The shit they gave Alkaline Trio when they signed to a major label is the dumbest shit I've ever heard of. But go ahead.
Yeah, it's like these guys, they were selling pretty well on SST, but they're ceiling. They were not going to get any more from this. Warner Brothers steps in, says, "Hey, want to sign with us? We'll get you. You can definitely sell more records.
Yeah, we'll give you a national tour. We'll give you a bigger budget. We'll give you a better recording studio, a better producer. Why would you not go with this? It's like saying, "Oh, I only want to make small independent movies." When it's like, "Well, hey, look, this is a really good movie, but it's going to cost $80 million. Fucking do it if you want to do it."
Yeah, and this is the thing: it's not like they weren't on a trajectory to sounding more alternative anyway. They had started as a hardcore, punk band, and then they gradually, through the releases, got more and more, for lack of a better word, pop. They became more of an alternative band, and it was just you can hear the progression. It's not like they signed to Warner Brothers and immediately put out, pop music.
Well, it's like
Candy
it's
Apple
not like the
Grey
Replacements.
makes sense.
There's a turning point with the Replacements where you can see that they're getting new producers, they got bigger budget and a major label, and they did turn to more pop sound, and that turned off a lot of the original fans. But it's not like this with Husker Du.
Yeah, it is exactly what the sound exactly makes sense for what they were doing, and thankfully we got a chance to actually hear this album, because who knows, if they had stuck with SST, we might not have gotten this particular album.
Right, a lot of bands sign to smaller labels and because they think they'll have more independence, and not realizing they're always on a shoestring budget. Devo, when they left Warner Brothers, I think it was a mutual decision because Warner Brothers was mad at Devo, but when they signed to I can't remember, Rykodisc, I think it was, they didn't know that they were on the verge of going out of business and they could barely release their albums. So why not go with someone who's going to promote what you just made instead of bury it?
Yeah, I don't know. It's the decisions some people make are, it sounded good at the time.
Yeah. Well intended. All right, is it my turn?
It is your turn.
Heyday by The Church was my replacement for Husker Du. I listened to this so long ago, I can't remember which tracks I liked, so I apologize. If you remember anything, John, let me know.
I do, because, okay, The Church is a band that I really seem to like, yet I've noticed I've only actually listened to one album.
Yeah, the one
and that was Starfish, which I absolutely love, and I think it's an amazing album. And I'm glad you dropped this one on me because it finally got me off my ass to listen to it.
Yeah, it's very background, enjoyable, sleep to it. It's not like it's boring though, but it's just very deep, rich sound.
Yeah, it's like Myrrh is amazing. I love Trieste. Happy Hunting Ground was like a weird instrumental that I found really interesting, but I don't remember if it's this one that I was thinking about, or else it's on Genesis. I'm spoiling it, but yeah, there was a instrumental that on one of them I thought should have been done by someone else. But like Tantalized, I love the horns on that one. It's just, thank you for making me listen to. Well, making me. Having me listen to. Having me listen to.
So
Church.
This is their first major label distribution. Now they've always been they were with EMI. They're still with EMI. They're the ones who put up the money and produced it. But now Warner Brothers is giving full American distribution. So that's a way that people could be considered selling out too. But that's not. It's still the exact same way they did before. It's just now they have international distribution.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Is this? It feels big, like a fairly big album. It's not. You can hear money behind what they're doing, as opposed to some of these other, like what. Trying to think like some like maybe the Chris Isaac album that we had that we listened to. Like there's less money in that one. I couldn't tell you one way or the other.
Yeah.
What his budget was, but the Church does sound like they did give them a budget.
Right. And well, I lost what I was gonna say. So hey, moving on. Shit, I hate it. I had something in my head. I fucking got distracted.
Oh, keys again. Keys.
Jingle, 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 jingle.
All right. My next one is Susie and the Banshees, Tinderbox.
How have I not listened to this before? I only know the song from Batman Returns. I shit you not. I only know the songs from that movie. And I was like, it's kind of fluffy. I don't know if I want to listen to it. This fucking album is awesome. I didn't know that I knew.
That's the thing is,
go ahead.
This is really the first album where they really started to shine. It's like, I mean, they had been around since like the late 70s. It's the Scream, the first album is really good. I love Juju, but really Tinderbox is kind of where their first steps into actually being a great band.
Right, their signature sound is solidified.
Yeah, and then the next album that comes after this, Peep Show, was really what got them a foothold in the U.S. And it's a great album, don't get me wrong, but this one is so much better. I mean, you have Candyman, which is thing. Cities and Dust is absolutely my favorite song.
Oh god, it's so good. Which I didn't know until I saw the title of the song, what it was called, because it doesn't sound like she's saying cities and dust. It's because she kind of sings the dust in a funny way, and I was like, she's saying cities are gone. I can't tell what she's saying, but now I know. I feel silly for not knowing.
Like Cannons, 92 Degrees. I mean, this album is just packed full of great stuff.
Yeah, and she can belt it, man. I remember everybody kind of got pulled back because you had Prince on the first Batman soundtrack, and he had all these big, huge hits. Whereas Batman Returns was a darker movie in tone and style, and so he went with an artist that wasn't about partying like the way Prince was. He went with someone that's more deep and soulful because, frankly, it fit perfectly because Batman or the Penguin and Catwoman are kind of fucked up villains in one way or another.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, like I said, if this is another one where if you're ever only going to listen to one album by a band, this is definitely the album to do it.
Yeah. My turn?
Your turn.
All right, Crowded House is my next album. This is probably the most accessible to people who don't listen to the usual kind of music that we get into. It's more like mom-friendly, dad-friendly. But I still think it's really smart and really well made. And Don't Dream It's Over is the big one that everybody knows. But I think Something So Strong is probably their best. And it's a really good video, by the way.
What's funny about this is the only song I knew by Crowded House was Don't Dream It's Over. So I had this preconception going into this album as to what their sound was. And I was surprised because it really wasn't what I thought it was going to be. And, it's like Mean to Me, it's like, I loved that one, Now We're Getting Somewhere. Yeah, like was it Love You Till the Day I Die is kind of like in this little Oingo Boingo vein.
Yeah.
It's like, I kind of assumed that this was going to be some weird, like, just kind of generic crap. And I'll be honest, I'm not in love with this album, but I think it's, like I said, it's definitely something that I'm glad I got a chance to listen to because I really had the band pegged as in a totally different sound.
Right. I didn't know this until this moment right now. They're born out of the prog rock band Split Enz.
Okay.
If you know them at all, they broke up and whatever, and half of the band went over to Crowded House, and that's why I think it has a deeper sound than a lot of what, because it seems like kind of mopey. I'm trying to think of the band that I compare them to. There's always that mainstream kind of pop alternative, like not Talking Heads, damn it, Simple Minds and stuff like that. It plays in the background at a fucking barber shop or something, or a bookstore.
Yeah, that's like I said, that's kind of what I was expecting to hear. It was just kind of like this lighty, simple,
right? Like Tears for Fears
kind of
thing. But no, I think it's a little bit better than that. That's why I kind of want to give a recommendation because when I listened to it, I was like, oh, this is better than I expected.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like definitely nothing. I don't think there was actually anything that you presented me in either of these that there's one that I didn't like that much, but overall, everything is something I went, hey, you know what? I enjoy this enough.
Yeah.
At the
well,
worst,
we always have one. We always have one. We're like, I really like this. And you're like, eh. And you'll have one like, I couldn't finish this.
Yeah. Oh, I believe I know. I'm sure I've got a couple.
Your stuff's a little harder to access. That's not what I want to say.
Admittedly, yeah.
Yeah. All right, your turn.
All right. So for my next one, we are looking at. Let me pull up that note. Boom. It is Candlemas, Epicus, Doomicus, Metallicus.
I don't even remember this one. I remember that name, but I don't remember the album. Was this metal or was it industrial?
This was metal. This was metal. They're the pioneering bands of the doom metal genre.
Oh, okay, yes, this is the one I couldn't finish.
Yeah, slow, sludgy. It's basically, you think of like early Black Sabbath.
Yeah,
but then
or mid-era Dio.
But like take that and then just kind of slow it down and make it heavier. Now, it didn't apparently sell that well initially because everybody was out thrashing each other at this point. So it eventually did find its home, but it's doom metal is a very underrepresented genre in metal just in general. Like, there are bands out there, bands who've actually done pretty well, like Typo Negative. And heck, there's one called Oceans of Slumber that's doing really, really great work right now. But, this is the granddaddy of the genre. And Solitude, the opening track, is a song that, it's a sad, emotional song about, basically being depressed and wanting to die. Ugh. And it just sends these shivers up your spine because it's just, you can feel just how raw this guy is feeling. I mean, you've got, like, Demon's Gates, this 9-minute monster. If you speed up one of the songs called Crystal Ball, you literally do have a Dio track right there. It's a, like I said, very soul. It's one of those things that does kind of reach into your soul a little bit more than I think some people maybe are willing to let it. Because it's just...
I felt like drinking. That's what I felt like when I was like, I gotta stop this.
It's a very low album. Low end and everything. And there are sometimes when you need that, I think.
My turn?
So what do you got?
Okay. This is probably the most well-known, even more than Control, and it is Dead Rock. I know this, but it's pretty good Dead Rock. It's Genesis' Invisible Touch. I think it's their best album. It's not as deep as some of the stuff they did with Peter Gabriel, but it has just something, I think, less generic than what they would do later in, like, 91. But Land of Confusion, I think, is one of the greatest videos and songs of the 80s, and the rest of it's just fun. I like Invisible Touch and Tonight, In Too Deep, Throwing It All Away. They were all huge hits. This album did not go away for a long time.
What's funny about it is Land of Confusion, the first time I've actually heard that song was as a cover by a metal band called In Flames. And then I finally eventually heard it, and yeah, I love that song.
Who did it and made it huge, though, about 15 years ago? They did an animated video.
Oh, you're... Disturbed.
Are they the ones who go, ooh, wah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Down with the Sickness. They also did that Simon and Garfunkel one, Sounds of Silence.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's one of these albums that I shouldn't even mention it because it sold so well, but I just really like this album.
Well, now this is the one I was talking about a little bit earlier, where I said Brazilian, which is this little instrumental they have at the end of the track, and it's an interesting song, but like someone like Juno Reactor or Future Sound of London, these techno bands that use a lot more like naturalistic sounds and organic sounds in their music, I think would do a great job with doing a version of this song.
Yeah,
because it's it's got the kind of tempos that they deal with, and again the sort of instrumentation that they use. It's just they're electronic groups, and these guys, and this is Genesis.
All right, your turn. Sorry.
Oh, I had one other thing to say about this. I was looking it up because there was something about this album I couldn't put my finger on necessarily. And it's like, in the tone and how it was. And it's like right before this, Phil Collins did Face Value and with Susie. And I went, that explains everything about this album now.
Yeah, it does. It does feel more like a Phil Collins album than it does Genesis. The influence of his What No Jacket Required really flowed over into this one.
Yeah, it's like the poppiness, the danciness of it, is very much like I'm not gonna be like, oh my god, it didn't feel like Genesis. Like, I listened to tons of Genesis, but it did kind of feel a little bit different.
Right. Really Abacab, I think it was a previous album. That one's more in depth, and I can't believe it never made my list for 1981. But I just like this. I don't know what else to say about it.
Okay. Well, now my next one is Chumbawamba, pictures of starving children sell records.
Fucking shocked. This made the list. This band was around that long, and it's this fucking good. It's good.
Well, that's the thing is, and I wrote this as my notes. So, hey, look, it's that party band that did that awesome drinking song I love. You know, I Get Knocked Down. You know, the song Tub Thumping.
Yeah.
Wait a minute, this doesn't sound like party music. This sounds like political commentary intended to make me think about stuff other than partying. And
this is like Rage Against the Machine before Rage Against the Machine. I mean, different sound, but the content is the same.
Yeah, that's how they were sold to the U.S. with Tub Thumping. We didn't know who the hell they were. And yeah, it's like they should have been sold as Britain's Rage Against the Machine, 100%. They're this anarcho-punk band that it's like, well, hell, this album is a criticism of Live Aid, and like that first track where they're basically calling out people like Freddie Mercury, you know, for basically like, yeah, be a part of Live Aid, this thing where it's a commercial designed to kind of distract the actual political causes of global hunger.
Oh, and it's a whole hour of your life that you gave to this, you know?
Yeah. It is... Damn, this is a hell of an album just in general. And what's funny is it's still pretty relevant, all things considered. And this is 86.
Yeah, I was shocked at how good it was.
Yeah, this is a band that really... You should listen to Chumbawamba if you agree with their politics.
And it has a really rich sound because it helps that they have two different lead singers. I always like that because it mixes up the songs, I mean.
Yeah. It's like, I've heard most of their albums at this point. I can't necessarily recommend their, the songs that they did all the traditional ones of. Those, not for me. But shit, yeah, Chumbawamba, you should check out anything from their discography. Now, what do you got?
I have Chris Isaak's second album, the how do you say it? Eponymous? The girl from Eponymous?
Yeah.
I did all that for that fucking joke. Sorry. So this one, apparently the first album didn't sell very well. What do you expect? A guy out of nowhere, you know, just 147,000 records. Ooh, he didn't sell very much. That seems like a lot now. But I guess they cut back the budget, and this was like his last chance with Warner Brothers before they were going to cut ties. And so he changed the sound. It said he changed it to R&B, but I listened to it, and I still hear everything I heard on the first album. A little less rockabilly, maybe. But
well, this is much more blues rock.
I guess
the first one was a lot more rockabilly with I really was digging on that one because of the gothy type stuff.
Yeah, the roots rock feel too.
So that was a much darker album. This one I didn't like as much as Silvertone. I liked this well enough. I definitely think it's one of these albums that this would have been my jam if I had gotten this in the early to mid 90s, around the time I was like hardcore listening to Bush or Foo Fighters, you know, things like that. 100%, this would have been my jam.
Yeah, and it has two big hits off of it. Two big hits for people who are Chris Isaak fans. Blue Hotel and Heart Full of Soul are still part of his repertoire. It sold double of the previous album, and yeah, you're right, it's not as good as Silvertone, but he had to do what he had to do to keep Warner Brothers happy, so he changed the sound. And he would have an evolution. He constantly bounces between this sound and the Silvertone sound. I think he's more Silvertone now, but after Heart-Shaped World 3 years later, you know, that became like his signature sound, was the deeper bluesy stuff.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is you can 100% tell it with this, is that's kind of where, like I said, along with the rockabilly stuff, that's definitely where he is very comfortable playing, and it's definitely his. I would not necessarily would want to hear him venture too far in any direction. Little bits here and there, like I said, the gothiness, you know, every little now and then maybe, but effectively, I think he's a very good R&B guitarist.
Yeah,
you know,
he would not go back to the rockabilly sound, I think, till Speak of the Devil, I think, in the late 90s, when, you know, the whole swing and rockabilly started to pick up again. You know, he was clearly a decent actor, but something about him must have got David Lynch's attention and Jonathan. Shit. Directed Something Wild and Married to the Mob. Why can't I think of his name? Silence of the Lambs.
Jonathan Demme.
Thank you, Jonathan Demme, because he was a big part of their movies in one way or another. And he had a really good TV show. I can't wait to discuss some of the stuff, 10 years from now, basically. Because it's going to it gets kind of boring after his big hit. I don't think he gets cool until the late 90s again. So, you're next.
My next one is The Bad Brains, Eye Against Eye.
Yeah, that was a good one. I really like this. I never listened to Bad Brains before.
Yeah, they're not a band I'm a particularly big fan of. Let me put that in front of you. But Eye Against Eye is 100% their best album. And I was thinking at one point to do like their first album. The Yellow Tape is great. I do think it's a great album. But again, it's Eye Against Eye is probably, if you're, I've said this a couple times already, if you're going to listen to something, do this one. They're a punk band. They do with like a reggae sound, and a lot of that's very prevalent on their first two records. This one took a little bit more heavy metal and funk approach. And wow, that's the sort of thing where you hear this and go, wow, it's like, why aren't these guys bigger?
Right.
Is kind of the thing.
It always happens, though. There's bands that have become cult following, but not because of any big track. It's just because of word of mouth. Yeah,
and that's the thing. These guys have been around and have just kind of been in the background of a lot of stuff. And it's kind of a shame that, it's like you have to, it almost seems like you have to know another band to then find, oh yeah, we think the Bad Brains are amazing. We did a cover of Reignition.
Yeah,
we did
that. There's that, and there's also the fact that music was so important in the 80s and 90s for movies. And you would find a lot of these bands on the soundtrack. You're like, I've never even heard of this. Who are these guys?
Yeah, which I want to say there's something off this one that's in like a Scorsese film.
I wouldn't be surprised. Scorsese is really, no one ever talks about it, but he really is cool with his music.
Yeah, I think so, or else it might have been like maybe they put from the first album, Pay to Come. I might have been on something in this era, but basically, yeah, it's like Bad Brains occasionally pop up on something. I know they did a track with Henry Rollins on some movie soundtrack that I have.
Yeah,
I can't remember what it is. Damn. That went nowhere. What's your next song?
I don't know. The same thing with mine. My next one is filler, basically. I mean, I like the album, but I have nothing to say about it, really. The is another one of those bands that, they pop up in the soundtrack and people talk about them. It's such an unusual name, too, that you have to remember it. But Infected is it's a decent hour of listening. Nothing too great. I think some of the political stuff is really smart. I think their guitar work is great. It's just there's no obvious singles, but I was fine with it.
Well, that's the thing is... this is another band that I was going, I need to listen to this. I've heard Infected. I like this song. And now I was really digging it. Like, Sweet Bird of Truth has some vibes of this other band called Pig, which, Pig is the band of a guy named Raymond Watts, who will be, who's a member of one of the bands that I'll be talking about in a moment. And I swear to God, he's singing on that album. I don't give a shit what Wikipedia says. I don't care if Raymond Watts was in Germany at the time, and this was in, I guess, the U.S., and that they probably had no reason to ever have met. That's fucking Raymond Watts on that song.
No, okay.
It's not, but it's. But I swear, the vocal, exactly how those vocals are done, is very much in his vocal styling. But yeah, I'm glad I got the chance to listen to it. It's definitely an interesting album. Not exactly what I thought it was going to be also. Weirdly enough, it kind of felt like it was an industrial album, even though it's not. A little more modern industrial, not older industrial.
Yeah. My turn?
That's it for me.
I hate the fact I'm getting
my
pooped.
turn.
I'm so old. Whose turn is it? I forgot where we were.
My turn.
Okay, go.
And my next one will be KMFDM's What Do You Know, Deutschland?
Holy fuck, I don't get the appeal of this band. I know you love them, but it is lost on me. I guess I don't like industrial music, and that's probably going to be a problem for the next decade.
Well, part of it is, I know you heard more, KMFDM a decade plus out. You've heard, because I know you heard one of the songs off Symbols, and you seemed to have kind of enjoyed that one.
I feel like a lot of soundtracks during the late 90s had KMFDM on them.
Oh yeah, we will get the album that broke them big and made them decide that they're never going to break big.
Okay.
But it's not their debut album. It is the second album, but for the longest time, this is the only one people knew as their first album. And it's a odd mix of stuff, because you have a couple of songs, like actual things that you can go, oh yeah, here are lyrics and this, a lot of stuff about sex. I noticed. I never had really thought about it lyrically, but yeah, there's a lot of these early songs are all about having sex. And but then there's also a little bit of political commentary, because you had What Do You Know, which is very much a political commentary using all these little samples and stuff. And basically it's this weird it's not dancey, but it is EBM, which is electronic body music. It is kind of there to, if you were in a club that played this stuff, you'd be a little more, move a little bit here and there.
Have you ever been to a club? I've never been to. Oh, well, that's not true. I went once because we got free tickets after we went to a comedy show to the little dance place next door, and they were all country line dancing. Does that count as a club?
Oh no, I've been to a couple of goth clubs a few times. Watch the people hobbit punch.
What the fuck is a hobbit punch?
Punching down towards the ground.
Like, are they punching people? They're just like aiming towards...
No, they're punching the air. It's just
okay. I was like short people already have it tough enough.
You watch the vampires glide by. They can be fun. They can also be full of pretentious assholes, and that's why I don't do goth clubs much after that.
All right.
What's next?
Skylarking by XTC. No, it's not their greatest album. No, it doesn't have the big hits, but it's just a really good listen. And I think the only track off this that is like a high recommend, like really poppy single, is "Earn Enough for Us," which is weird because the the story behind it is fucking horrifying. I'm starving to death in England. You're just make enough money so we can eat for the day. But it's also kind of infamous because one of their most notorious songs is "Dear God." Now, it only was originally part of this album, like in the initial pressing in the UK. They took it off and it wouldn't show up for a little bit later. I think like 2 albums later. I just love XTC. It's just a good comfort listen.
What's funny is I keep forgetting they exist.
Really?
Partially, this is because the only song I actually know was "Making Plans for Nigel." And I only know that because it was covered by the industrial band Pitch Shifter.
Oh, okay. Do you know who produced this album?
Who produced this one?
Todd Rundgren.
Oh.
That's why it's a little more challenging than the previous album in its sound. It's a little more complicated, but the problem is Todd Rundgren was never a guy who really wrote pop songs. And that's what holds this album back, is because there's not a lot of poppy tracks, which is ironic since we love that... What was it the band that he was in that we listened to? There was an album from Utopia. That album was fairly pop friendly, and but he's always known for being like kind of progressive rock, complicated. But I do think he helps mature the band a little bit.
Well, part of my problem with XTC is every song I think of that's by them is actually an INXS song.
Okay, to me they don't sound anything alike, but okay.
No, because I've with the exception of "Making Plans for Nigel," I genuinely don't think I've ever heard an XTC song until I heard this album.
Oh my god, I can't wait for you to hear the next two, because this is the next two when they just hit the ground running. They're so damn good.
but it's like, for the most part, it's like, I'm going like, it's a pretty chill album, and I'm like, okay, I'm okay with this. It's not inspiring me or anything, but then you get like, that's really super, super girl, and all of a sudden it's like this weird change of pace. But the thing that really stood out, like, and captured my imagination was Another Satellite.
They're just a really interesting band with an evolution in their depth, I think. Because, they kicked it out with, I think the first single they ever had was Senses Working Overtime, which is, probably their most well-known song now. You probably don't even know what I'm talking about, do you? 1, 2, 3, no. 4, 5, senses working overtime. Know that? No? Nothing?
Not off the top of my head, no.
But it took them a while to get another big single, and that's going to be the next album is when they finally become like mainstream for a brief moment. But that's it. All I want to say about Skylarking. It's just a very good comfort album.
Yeah, I can see that.
Next. Proceed, sir.
My next one, moving in the industrial land, is Revolting Cocks, Big Sexy Land.
Yeah, just fucking love that name.
Yes. Now, this is 100% an industrial dance album. I mean, when I was mentioning EBM earlier, this is specifically more so what you would think of, because even if you didn't like this, you can at least admit that if you were in a club setting, you would see people dancing to a lot of these songs.
Yeah, I feel like I like this one. I think I finished this one. Industrial, like I said, is harder for me than anything else.
Yeah, and this is Revco is one of the many bands that Al Jurgensen of Ministry is involved in. This is one of his side projects, along with a guy named Richard 23 of the band Front 242, which I really am going to try and get on the show at some point.
Which I keep confusing with that album by Anthrax. Stop. What is it? 424. So I had 242.
Stop 424. Yeah, something like that. Yeah, it's like I might not be able to get to them till the 2000s, but. Yeah, it's basically this project that it came together really quickly. They had met on tour. They had a good time. Hey, let's go put together a band. And then they released this album, got some singles out, and then they fall apart because they disagreed over one remix of one of the songs.
Jeez. Okay,
now,
that's a weird thing to fight over.
Yeah. Now, one thing to check out, because they have a couple. They've been kind of on and off as a band for a while, but they have a cover of "Do You Think I'm Sexy?"
No.
And I love that cover so much, and it has a video.
Okay, I gotta see that.
And I'll say this: it's like a Tool video. It's nightmare fuel.
Oh.
I will warn you this.
Okay.
But it is. I love the cover so much.
Okay.
But yeah, I actually saw them when they reformed back in 2006 on tour. And during the performance of that particular song, Luke Van Acker, the guy who's the vocalist, had dressed himself up in a giant penis costume and was jumping around on stage, and it was very entertaining.
Nice.
So, yeah, Revolting Cocks, you might... One of their later albums actually might also have a song maybe you've heard. I don't know.
Maybe.
It's weirdly enough, yeah. It kind of seems like people at least know Beers, Steers, and Queers by them. But I go like, that's about it for anything that anyone would have known in main culture. But that is it.
Yeah, I have nothing to say about the next album. I don't even remember the album, but I needed 10. I seem to have liked it. Rick Ocasek, The Side of Paradise. I don't remember anything about it. I know I had a song. I was like, hey, I know this song, and it's just pleasant to listen to. I got nothing else. Moving on.
What's funny is I've never heard of this guy. I don't know who this guy is. I did this album first of this grouping, and then I'm going, this sounds really interesting. It sounds really, like there's a lot of balance and stuff. I'm like, who is this guy? Oh, he's the guy from the Cars. No wonder I like this album.
Yeah, it's funny is I looked it up and it's like most of the people from the band had broken up at this point, or not broken up, but he had left, and left the other guy in the lead who would die like a couple years later. It's just like one of these supergroup hodgepodge albums. Like, who's available? Who are some session artists? Or who broke up from this band? Let's put them together. And I guess G.E. Smith from Saturday Night Live, he was there, like their band leader, was a big help in this album. So it's weird. It's just like an amalgam album, but it kind of works.
Well, that's the thing is, in a weird way, I think this is probably the most perfect album that we've listened to, because everything about this, all the instruments work in perfect harmony with another. There's nothing that is that overpowers anything else.
That's so weird, considering he didn't have the same people for every track. That's so weird.
It's like the keys are present when they're necessary. The guitars are heavy at times, but not overly so. Like, yeah, it's a perfect balance. It just feels like.
Well, I think that's why I didn't look at. That's why he became like a well-known producer. In the 90s, he basically stopped doing his own stuff and became like, Weezer and the Pink Spiders and other guys. He was a big producer for those guys.
Yeah, and that's what I'm thinking. I was going like, if he didn't produce this album himself, he, whoever did is amazing, because I didn't look at the credits, so I don't know who to credit on this one. But this, like I said, I think is... Even like albums that I absolutely love, die hard love, like Heaven and Hell, I don't think have a perfect balance of music that this one does.
Oh, so it did say he co-produced this with Chris Hughes, who was the drummer for Adam and the Ants, and also was a big producer for Tears for Fears. I guess that's about it. Oh, and did a bunch of Peter Gabriel stuff. So yeah, so there's some talent behind him.
Okay. Yeah, and now that, I think that makes a lot of sense, where it's a lot of people who've watched others produce their stuff, and again, some solid material, now knowing exactly what they want out of this album.
All right, your turn.
No, well, here, let me ask you this.
What
almost made your list?
What almost made your list? Oh, dude, I left it on the... Yeah. Hold on, let me go get it. I left it. You
well, here, I'll do mine.
Okay.
I'll do mine.
All right.
All right. There's a trifecta of albums that I adore from this year that I chose not to do, because you had Slayer's Rain in Blood, Megadeth's Peace Sells, and Metallica's Master of Puppets, but they're also like the most well-known, well-respected albums. Maybe Peace Sells isn't as respected, but still three of the greatest ones. Skinny Puppy's Mind the Perpetual Intercourse, Clan of Zymox's Medusa, The Mission's God's Own Medicine, Iggy Pop's Blah Blah Blah, Fishbone's In Your Face,
oh yeah,
Alien Sex Fiends, Alien Sex Fiends' It, the album, and then there's also one that made your list, so we'll find out what that is when we get back to you.
Okay, I lost part of my list, which I mailed you about, or emailed, or messaged you about, because I don't know what the hell the rest of the stuff was in there, but I have half of mine. You're going to laugh a little bit, because it's kind of stupid. Eat 'Em and Smile by David Lee Roth. I realize this is not the album that I really like of his. There's going to be one that does make the list, but it's not going to be for a few more years. Raising Hell by Run DMC is a hell of a lot of fun. The Vinnie Vincent Invasion, if you just like douchebag rock, which is sometimes I like douchebag rock. Huey Lewis 4 is an album that I owned and listened to a million times. I think it's their strongest album. Jacob Slider
100%.
Yeah, Jacob Slider is their best track, and that barely hit the top 40. Alice Cooper Constrictor. What else do I have here? True Colors by Cyndi Lauper. And Fastway's soundtrack for the movie Trick or Treat.
That last one.
I know.
Shut
up.
Yeah. No, I had for Halloween. I did have that track for on my Halloween playlist. But yeah, there's some stuff there. I would say there's like Run DMC. Yeah, I did think about, but it is also huge. It fits it doesn't fit it, but it's Run DMC, and unfortunately I do think people need to be schooled about Run DMC.
Yeah.
So, I mean, but it's like the same reason why I was hesitant about those 3 metal albums. It's like, yes, everyone should hear Peace Sells, Rain and Blood and Master of Puppets, but they're also, if someone's gonna throw a metal, hand you a metal album, it's probably gonna be one of those 3.
Right, totally, yeah.
I guarantee you, it's gonna be Master of Puppets first.
Yeah, that's why I didn't include like Ride the Lightning, which is my favorite Metallica album, I think, and just kind of like skip that because everybody knows that album. I think the reason I added Genesis is because I think people are forgetting who Genesis is, and I think they also forget how great Janet Jackson was. So that's the reason why I popped in there. Well,
there's a bunch of pop singers that I haven't mentioned on here, but it's like, like you mentioned Cyndi Lauper. It's like, I would totally agree that people should probably remember who the hell Cyndi Lauper is.
Yeah.
People should remember. People should remember Tiffany.
I don't think so on that one.
No. I'm kidding on that one,
okay.
But like Paula Abdul.
Oh, you know what? Yes, I quite enjoy the first 2 albums by Paula Abdul.
It's like there's some stuff on there I go, we probably shouldn't forget that they actually put out some strong stuff.
Right. All right.
That
what's your
being
final
said,
choice?
My final one is Iron Maiden's Somewhere in Time.
Best?
I threatened this on all of you.
Yes.
And you got to listen to it now.
Well, I was fine with it. It just feels like my problem is I like some Iron Maiden tracks, but I never like their albums because they all feel the same. It's kind of like AC/DC. I love AC/DC, but some of the albums kind of just seem the same. But it has my favorite track is Wasted Years. All-time favorite track by Iron Maiden is Wasted Years. So already, you're good.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's the thing is, this album, it's a better album than people really do kind of give it credit for. Like, it's not that it didn't sell well or no one liked it or that they didn't do a big, massive tour on it or anything. But, yeah, it's basically Heaven Can Wait and Wasted Years are the only songs people, seem to remember. The only songs that are, like, still played.
Right.
And again, not for nothing, Wasted Years is one of their best songs.
Have you ever heard the Damone cover?
I have not.
Okay, I'm going to send that to you. It's so good. That's how I know the track in the first place. I had never listened to Iron Maiden really, except for like the 2 or 3 major tracks. I heard it from Damone, and then I just casually was watching music videos of 1986, and I was like, holy shit, Iron Maiden this is their song? Cool!
Yeah, and well, that's the thing. It's like, this is the first album that they use synths, although these are guitar synthesizers, and then later on, people actually use regular synth machines. But it's like, you have Somewhere in Time, the opening track, is based off the movie Time After Time. You have, Stranger in a Strange Land. Guess what that's based off of?
I have no idea. Life with Mikey, starring Michael J. Fox?
Exactly.
Okay, good. I knew it. I knew it.
But yeah, this album is filled with some bangers. Yeah, there's Stranger in a Strange Land, Sea of Madness, Deja Vu. All these songs rip. And, people don't, just kind of seem to like, oh yeah, it's Power Slave and Number of the Beast, and then
yeah. Well, I think also power metal is kind of looked down on because it tells these big, rich stories that are fantasy based, and this is the time when thrash is starting to kick its ass and power metal's starting to fade away. I will take that over thrash, honestly.
Yeah, and to be fair, this is really probably their last good album. They have a couple of a couple of good, decent songs here and there.
Not the one I heard yesterday. Bring Your Daughter to the Slaughter is the fucking dumbest song.
Oh yeah, although that was kind of a hit, but like,
I know, but it doesn't mean anything. Well, LFO had a big hit with Summer Girls. That song is dumb as shit.
But it's like it's not until like about 2000 where they kind of get a little bit, get back up for a little while, and then. And I like the last couple of albums.
Yeah, the last couple are pretty good, yeah.
Yeah, but it's like, for the most part, they've kind of been posting on the fact that we all love the original hits.
We can say that about a lot of bands like Black Sabbath.
Well, yeah, but except they're not even around anymore, really.
All right. My turn?
Ozzy is, though.
Oh, yes.
It's your turn.
Have you heard the latest Ozzy track that he produced with Elton John? I Don't Want to Die a Normal Man. It's so good.
I think I have. I know it's been around on my Spotify. So.
All right. So my final album is Tesla, their debut Mechanical Resonance. Am I saying that right?
Resonance.
Okay.
Yeah.
Look, I'm kind of dumb. Nah, I'm not kind of dumb. I'm really dumb. Tesla got lumped in with the hair metal bands, and I don't believe they belong there. Just because they had long hair and they were popular at the time doesn't mean they're the same. I really think that they had more of a blues sound. They had it was different. They weren't talking about partying and babes. It was just a little bit richer.
I would say this: they're more in line. Although these people would talk about babes and stuff like that, but they're more in line with like ZZ Top than they would be any of the hair metal.
Right, they debuted in the 80s, but they kind of have a 70s feel, like Thin Lizzy and stuff like that. Easy Come, Easy Go's great. Little Susie's their first cover. Of course, Signs would be their biggest hit, and it's also a cover. But I think Modern Day Cowboy is the fucking coolest song they ever did, and maybe one of the coolest songs out of the 80s. That song fucking rips.
Like, I love, Coming At You Live, Before My Eyes.
Yeah, and
Love
Changes is great. Yeah, I have their greatest hits collection. It opens with Modern Day Cowboy, ends with Changes. It's so much fun.
Yeah, they're a band that is definitely underrated.
Yeah.
I don't think that they've ever really... I almost want to say it like this. They're like Queensryche in a lot of ways, except I think Queensryche had a few better albums in general.
Yeah, I can't wait to... I want to listen to them. I've never listened to Queensryche, but I'm eager to find out what they're like.
It's kind of like... It's, in a sense, like they are similar in a sense where they are there. They are... I'm trying to remember the line from Henry Rollins where it's like, they're the janitor. They're there, not necessarily there before everyone started, but they're there after everybody leaves. They're gonna, put up everything, put up the chairs, clean the dishes, and just kind of they're the sturdy, just kind of like always around.
Right. They seem like a bar band that somehow got to go beyond that. They weren't filling arenas unless they were like the headline or the openers, but they were just very sturdy, reliable band.
Yeah, and this is an album that's definitely worth listening to. I can't guarantee anyone, whoever listens is going to love them. It's not one of those things where I can go, oh my God, you definitely have to listen. If you do not listen to Tesla, your life is meaningless. But I go, listen to Tesla, damn it. Yeah. They need to be heard.
Right, they're not shitty like fucking Poison or... God, there's so many of those shitty hair bands. Like Motley Crue, I don't count because they started before and they survived afterwards. But I'm talking about solely those bands. Their peak era was 86 to 92, and then they were done. Like Warrant. Actually Warrant's not that bad. It's like
you're listening to a lot of the bands that showed up on Decline of Western Civilization Part 2.
Didn't know that they were a joke. Oh my God, Kiss. Kiss, let me tell you this. Besides The Elder, everything in the 80s the Kiss did was fucking garbage. Come on. One of the worst bands relying on their old hits to survive. Oh no, Tears Are Falling, where I think that's the only lyric for 5 fucking minutes? No.
Oh man. Well, but that's the thing is, like, Kiss was a band that basically they figured out what they did. They managed to write early on enough in their career, managed to write all the songs that they needed to write, and still just did shit.
Yeah. Well, I think Tesla is still valid for quite some... I haven't listened to their albums in like the last 20 years, but Bust a Nut, I think, was the last major release, and that was still pretty good. That was 94, I think. But yeah, that's it for my top 10. That's it for your top 10. Are we ready to turn the radio off?
We are. The needle is ready to drop.
All right, everybody. Check us out on Facebook under Hit Rewind Podcast. It's where you'll find all our episodes. And John, thank you very much for this.
Thank you for having me.